Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story: Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem is calling out Harvard University over alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party. But how deep does the problem really go? We explore nearly 3 decades of China's relationship with Harvard.
There is no way these American institutions, whether it's a college, university, whether it's a corporation, they should not be in bed with the communist Chinese government.
Trade talks between the U.S. and China are heating up. Top officials from both sides are connecting over the phone for more high-level discussions. Senator Ted Cruz speaking about China's growing footprint in the Middle East. Details on that and how the Trump administration is dealing with China's malign influence.
There's no doubt that China represents the most significant long-term strategic geopolitical threat to the United States.
And Chinese solar companies are cashing in on U.S. tax breaks, but that cash could quickly stop flowing if the big, beautiful bill passes. Harvard is in the hot seat with the Trump administration. The school is suing after the White House pulled its ability to enroll foreign students. On Friday, a federal judge granted Harvard's request for a temporary restraining order to keep those students in class for now. So what's lighting the fuse? Harvard is under scrutiny for its long-standing ties to the Chinese Communist Party and its acceptance of large amounts of foreign funding. On Thursday, the Department of Homeland Security issued a press release accusing the university of training members of a CCP paramilitary group. That group's been linked to ongoing persecution of Uyghurs in China. And get this, for almost 30 years, Harvard's Kennedy School has been training Chinese communist officials. Speaking on Fox News, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem accused Harvard of turning a blind eye to CCP infiltration.
They have allowed anti-Semitism, participation with CCP and Chinese infiltration and influence on their campus, and they haven't protected their students.
Noem's remarks shine a spotlight on growing worries about the CCP's reach inside American institutions, but she didn't mention Harvard's decades-long program training top Chinese officials. Official Chinese media say the Harvard Kennedy School has educated over 600 senior CCP leaders since in roughly the past 3 decades. Records show that as early as 1996, Harvard was hosting up to 60 Chinese officials and nearly 50 military officers for various training programs. Harvard has trained over 600 participants in the past 3 decades. Some of them participate in semester-long programs, while others attend shorter 4-week courses. Some officials even go on to earn master's degrees from the Kennedy School. One notable graduate is Liu He, director of China's Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission. Liu led trade negotiations with the Trump administration in 2016. Another graduate is a former vice president of China. He was head of the Communist Party in a major Chinese city when he was trained at Harvard. And now Harvard is feeling the heat firsthand. The Department of Homeland Security just pulled the plug on Harvard's student and exchange visitor program. This program is how Harvard brings in foreign students eager to study here in the U.S. In response, Harvard slammed the decision as unlawful, vowing to fight for its international community and protect its academic mission. On Friday, China warned that the ban would damage America's image. Concerns around Harvard's ties to China go beyond educating CCP officials and the safety of students on campus. Back in April, the Education Department sent Harvard a letter accusing the school of submitting inaccurate information about large foreign donations. That raised a bigger question: just how much influence does foreign money really have on campus? Since then, several agencies, including the Department of Veterans Affairs, have pulled or frozen nearly $4 billion in grants to Harvard and its research partners. And just earlier this month, President Trump posted on Truth Social that Harvard's tax exam status would be revoked, though no one knows exactly when. To dig deeper into the ties between American colleges and the Chinese Communist Party, NTD's Jack Bradley spoke with Democratic strategist Danny Salas and Republican strategist Jim McLaughlin. Let's take a look.
Jim, why is it so significant to find links between American higher education and the Chinese Communist Party?
Oh, gosh. I mean, you think about it too. What normally happens here, and this is the cycle, and now we're finding out that the terrorist that killed those two beautiful young people last night, he has ties to these radical left-wing groups out there. I think it was some group called the some socialist party, and that's what normally happens. They go from socialism. They tried to hide the fact that they're communists and Marxists. They go from socialism, and that's where they go, and that's where they take it to the next level. And Secretary Noem, she is exactly right. There is no way these American institutions, whether it's a college, university, whether it's a corporation, they should not be in bed with the communist Chinese government. It's just flat out wrong, and it's anti-American. And what's going to happen is the more this is going on, they're indoctrinating our students. And you know what? That's one of the reasons why Donald Trump won. It's why the Republicans are in charge of Congress right now, is because the American people have said enough of this. They don't like this kind of indoctrination that's going on American college campuses.
Well, opposing the Chinese Communist Party's influence on in the U.S. is also crosses party lines. I want to get your thoughts on that, Denny. What message does this send to other universities that may be engaging with foreign adversaries like the CCP?
Look, it's a great question, because what we've seen is this obsession with money. And we know that money has been infecting an actual honest work that universities used to do. And it sways their opinion about a particular party that may be an adversary to the United States. So all these universities that are out there, they need to be being very careful. They need to be very deliberate, and they need to actually go through exactly what is being asked of them when they accept dollars from foreign countries or foreign groups that may not be very friendly to the United States and our own goals in our own society. So I think it's very valid where my colleague here, Jim, speaking out against saying that these folks are being kind of destroyed because they're being radicalized in these groups. And like I would say, I would disagree with you and just solely focusing on the left, because we do see this on the far right as well. And that's part of, I think, a greater strategy where I mentioned earlier that it is easy and cheap to try to manipulate Americans against each other by trying to find these hot button issues and try to pit each other against each other. And we're seeing this over and over again. And I believe that that's a greater strategy that our adversaries are employing. So we're seeing it again in the university space as well, because they recognize that with a little bit of money, they can influence some folks in a group of people to believe what they stand for and what their country stands for. So a lot of these universities need to take a closer look about who they're accepting these dollars from, and recognize that they need to care about American societies, before they care about their own pockets.
China says it's keeping the lines open, vowing on Friday to continue trade talks with the U.S. This comes as both sides work to ease tensions over ongoing trade disputes. Beijing says its vice foreign minister spoke by phone on Thursday with U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau.
China says the two sides discussed key issues. The State Department has acknowledged the call and says that both countries agreed to keep communication open. The call follows an agreement reached on May 12th in Switzerland to pause new trade measures and reduce tariffs for 90 days. The U.S. lowered its tariff rate on Chinese goods from 145% to 30%, and China dropped its tariffs on American imports from 125% to 10%.
As the Chinese Communist Party seeks to expand its footprint in the Middle East, Senator Ted Cruz sounded the alarm on Thursday. Speaking at the Hudson Institute, he addressed the national security issues at hand and how U.S. allies should respond. NTD's Sam Wong has the story.
There's no doubt that China represents the most significant long-term strategic geopolitical threat to the United States.
Senator Ted Cruz on Thursday speaking at the Hudson Institute about China's malign influence in the Middle East, from forming trade ties with the Gulf states to supporting Iran's military programs. Cruz said it's an undertaking aimed at diminishing U.S. global dominance.
Iran and China signed a 25-year strategic partnership plan with a commitment from China to invest $400 billion in projects in Iran over that period. The oil, metaphorically and literally, fueled China's economic and military buildup over the last 4 years.
The Middle East remains a priority for the Trump administration. Wrapping up a high-stakes trip to the Persian Gulf, President Trump last week returning home with a slew of multi-billion-dollar investment deals, spanning areas like AI, technology, and finance.
After so many decades of conflict, finally it is within our grasp to reach the future that generations before us could only dream about, a land of peace, safety, harmony, opportunity, innovation, and achievement right here in the Middle East.
The visit could have implications for China, as both Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are participants in Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. It's a global infrastructure project widely seen as a tool to spread China's influence outside its borders. Senator Cruz has a message to U.S. trading partners in the Middle East.
Being friends with China does not work out well for anyone. When they come into a country and say, we'll build your infrastructure, they, number one, don't employ workers from that country. They bring in Chinese workers, and often they trap the companies in a debt trap because they want to exercise control.
Earlier this year, President Trump issued an executive order imposing maximum pressure on Iran to end its nuclear program. The administration has also vowed to sanction countries that buy crude oil from Iran, and China is the largest importer of Iranian oil. Sam Wang, NTD News, Washington, D.C.
The House advanced President Trump's sweeping tax and spending bill on Thursday. The legislation could end numerous green energy subsidies that have supported the renewable energy sector, and it's expected to hit Chinese companies hard.
Trump's budget package, which he calls, quote, one big beautiful bill, would repeal grants intended to reduce air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions or purchase electric heavy-duty vehicles. The bill would remove the 30% federal tax credit for taxpayers who install solar rooftop systems, posing a significant challenge to the industry. A Raymond James analyst told Reuters that although green energy firms were already anticipating the gradual phase-out of wind and solar tax credits, the new version of the bill accelerates this timeline. Stakeholders now turn their attention to the Senate, where the bill is headed next, hoping it will reverse many of the clean energy budget cuts and incentives.
Chinese solar companies are currently getting U.S. tax perks, but watch out, those could disappear if President Trump's big, beautiful bill becomes law. Now, the bill is in the Senate's court. Here's more.
The act was passed by the House of Representatives early Thursday. China's solar importers are asking the Senate to change course in their version of the bill. President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act provided tax write-offs to clean energy producers and manufacturers. Since China is the world's #1 solar manufacturer, its companies benefited, and the U.S. saw increased Chinese solar power investment. Once President Trump signs the act into law, China will no longer qualify for what has amounted to a double subsidy, tax breaks from the United States, plus Beijing-granted subsidies and other benefits back home. Last year, Horizon Advisory warned that the U.S. clean energy sector faces big risks by allowing Chinese energy investment. It said if Chinese state-backed players exploit U.S. policy, the U.S. could lose energy independence and the security and economic development that come with it.
Coming up, Chinese labs linked to national security risks are testing electronic devices for use in the U.S. Now, the Federal Communications Commission is stepping in. New hurdles are in store for foreign nationals looking to buy land in the U.S. A congressman wants to block non-citizens from purchasing U.S. property if their country shut out Americans like China does. And shoppers beware, Nike is raising prices on select gear starting next week. Adidas and Puma are expected to jump on board with hikes of their own. That and more in just a minute here on China in Focus. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The Trump administration is cracking down on Chinese labs involved in electronics testing. The Federal Communications Commission voted unanimously on Thursday to finalize new rules, banning labs linked to national security risks from testing electronic devices for use in the U.S.
That means such labs will no longer be able to test products like smartphones, computers, and cameras bound for the U.S. market. All electronics sold in the U.S. must go through the FCC's equipment authorization process. Currently, about 75% of those devices are tested in labs located in China. The FCC says many of these labs have deep ties to the Chinese Communist Party and have tested thousands of products in recent years. In response, the Chinese embassy in Washington accused the U.S. of overstretching national security to target Chinese companies.
Foreign nationals could soon face new hurdles when buying land in the U.S. Congressman Pat Harrigan has introduced a bill that would ban non-citizens from purchasing land if their home countries, like China, bar Americans from doing the same. Here's more.
Harrigan says American families are being priced out of their own communities, while hostile regimes are buying land with cash and zero accountability. The bill targets foreign adversaries like China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia, all of which have laws restricting land ownership by foreigners. Harrigan said foreign adversaries have exploited loopholes to purchase U.S. farmland and property near critical infrastructure while banning Americans from buying land in their countries, creating a double standard. The bill also adds a 50% tax on other real estate purchases by citizens and entities of foreign adversary nations.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Chinese nationals own about 380,000 acres of land in America as of 2023. This is roughly the size of Houston, America's fourth largest city. Some of this land sits near U.S. military bases, sparking national security concerns as Beijing's global influence and strategic ambitions grow. Nike announced this week it will hike prices on select products starting next week. The footwear company will also resume selling on Amazon after a 6-year absence to boost market share. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
Nike is returning to Amazon for the first time since 2019 and hiking prices on some products as its new CEO works to reverse a revenue slump. The footwear retailer will increase prices on apparel and equipment for adults between $2 and $10, while those priced between $100 and $150 will see a $5 increase. The company sources a significant portion of its footwear from China and Vietnam. The company's global sales dropped 9% last quarter, including a 17% drop in China, Nike said in its most recent earnings report. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Adidas and Puma are expected to raise prices on running shoes and sportswear in the U.S. following Nike's lead. Britain is signing a deal to cede sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. The islands are home to a strategic and vital military base that is jointly run by the United States and Britain. At the same time, concerns are rising over growing Chinese, Russian, and Iranian influence in Mauritius. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more.
A few moments ago, I signed a deal.
Britain has agreed to hand over sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to the African nation Mauritius, but under a 99-year lease, will retain control of the largest island, Diego Garcia, which is home to a crucial joint US-UK military base. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the treaty is vital for defence and intelligence.
The strategic location of this base is of the utmost significance to Britain. From deploying aircraft to defeat terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan, to anticipating threats in the Red Sea and the Indo-Pacific, the base is right at the foundation of our security and safety at home.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the US welcomes the deal, saying, "This agreement secures the long-term, stable and effective operation of the joint US-UK military facility at Diego Garcia, which is crucial to regional and global security." Diego Garcia is situated in the middle of the Indian Ocean and would be critical in the event of a conflict with China over Taiwan. British ministers argued that the deal needed to be done because the UK would have faced legal challenges within weeks, which could have jeopardized the base. British Defence Secretary John Healey said the UK will retain full operational control of Diego Garcia, including the electromagnetic spectrum satellite used for communications which counters hostile interference. Healey continued,
"Nothing can be built within a 24 nautical mile buffer zone without our say-so, and we've secured an effective veto on all developments in the Chagos archipelago, and a strict ban will be imposed on foreign security forces operating on the outer islands."
This came after concerns were raised about Chinese, Russian and Iranian influence over Mauritius. The deal will require the UK to inform Mauritius of armed attacks emanating from the base targeting a third nation. Under the agreement, Britain will pay Mauritius an average of $136 million a year to lease back the base for at least 99 years, with an option for a 50-year extension to the lease. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching, and we wish you all a very good Memorial Day weekend.